Okay, just picture this. You're at your own 75th birthday party. It's supposed to be this huge celebration, and your successful son is hosting it at his gorgeous house. But instead of cake, what you get is a bombshell. A revelation that proves the last 5 years of your life have been built on a complete and total lie.
And that's the question. Just dropped casually across the dinner table by a sister who sees everything. It's the kind of question that just stops time. You hear a fork clatter to a plate, a daughter-in-law suddenly bolts from the room, and that question just hangs there in the air. You know? Absolutely thick with guilt.
Because for Delilah Ames, the woman whose 75th birthday it is, this question makes no sense. There is no trust fund. There's just a tiny, cramped apartment and a pension that's barely enough to live on. So this is the mystery we're diving into. How does $500,000 just vanish?
Yeah, so the party, it was basically over before it even got started. All it took was one question from someone who just refused to play along anymore. And just like that, a web of lies that had been spun for 5 long years started to come apart.
So let's picture the scene, right? You've got Delilah at the head of the table, feeling more like a prop than the guest of honor. Then there's her son Reggie and his wife Chelsea, who are just dripping with success. And then there's the catalyst for this whole explosion, Delilah's sister, Vivian, a sharp businesswoman who, let's just say, does not put up with nonsense.
To really get why Delilah was so completely floored by that question, we have to rewind a bit. We've got to look at the lies she'd been living, totally unknowingly, for the past 5 years, ever since her husband passed away. For 5 years, these two realities were existing at the same time, which is just wild. On one side, you have Delilah's world, a tiny apartment, counting every single penny, eating canned soup, and just feeling like she was a burden to everyone. And then, at the very same time, you've got Reggie and his family in a 3-story mansion with a pool, luxury cars, private schools, a lifestyle Delilah just thought they'd earned from hard work.
$800 a month. That's it. That's what Delilah's reality was. That's what she was surviving on. Her son would, sometimes graciously hand her a couple $100, and she'd be so grateful for it, with no idea it was just a tiny, tiny crumb of her own money being handed back to her.
And this was the story Reggie sold her, the big lie. He said his dad had left behind all these debts, that they had to sell the family home to cover everything, and that this tiny pension was all that was left. And Delilah, she trusted her son completely. Why wouldn't she? She was from a generation that was taught to be quiet, to trust family, to just endure.
So let's get back to that dinner table. Vivian's question is still hanging in the air, and that perfectly crafted lie is starting to crack. The whole thing starts to unravel with one really important financial term.
An irrevocable trust. Think of it like a legal lockbox. It's a shield designed for one specific purpose, to protect money for someone. Delilah's husband set this up to make absolutely sure she'd be taken care of for the rest of her life. That money was legally and only hers.
Vivian, she wasn't having any of the confusion. She just laid out the facts, cold and hard, right there at the table. $500,000. They came from the sale of their home, their life savings. The trust required a payout of $4,000 every single month. And the administrator, the one person who was supposed to protect it all, was her son, Reggie.
When he's finally cornered, what's Reggie's excuse? Oh, he was just investing the money. Being smart with it. He was going to give it to her when the time was right. And that's when Delilah, with a voice just trembling with 5 years of hurt and confusion, finally breaks her silence and asks the one question that just blows the whole lie wide open.
So yeah, the birthday party is officially dead. And that's when the family lawyer Elias Carter shows up. The whole evening just shifts from this horribly painful family fight into a full-on legal reckoning, where the true scale of what happened is about to come to light.
The lawyer's documents, oh man, they just laid out the devastation in black and white. It showed a systematic draining of the account. That $500,000 fund that was meant to give Delilah peace of mind, it had been spent on house payments, renovations, fancy cars. And all that was left? A measly $30,000.
Look, this wasn't just some family squabble, This was a crime. A bunch of them, actually. The lawyer spelled it all out for Reggie and Chelsea. Misappropriation, fraud, elder abuse. All of it carrying the potential for some serious prison time.
And for the first time in years, maybe ever, the power was completely in Delilah's hands. She had 3 options on the table. She could sue them. She could press criminal charges that would likely send her own son to prison. Or she could set the terms of a private settlement.
The choice of hers, and hers alone.
After a whole lifetime of being told what to do, of being quiet, Delilah makes a choice for herself. And her decision, it isn't just about getting her money back. It's about taking back her dignity, her security, and the life that was stolen from right under her nose.
She chose a private agreement, but man, it had teeth. These were her terms, and they were non-negotiable. The house, bought with her money, had to be sold immediately. All the luxury cars and assets liquidated. She demanded a huge upfront payment plus monthly installments. And maybe the most important part, they had to tell their kids the truth about what they did. No more lies.
With the money, Delilah got a new apartment. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. She reconnected with her sister Vivian and her old friend Pet. But the biggest change, that happened on the inside. She had finally found her voice. And with it, she found a new purpose that had nothing to do with money.
And here's where the story gets really incredible. Delilah takes all that trauma and turns it into a way to help others. A social worker heard her story, and now, twice a month, the woman who was silenced for 75 years helps other elderly victims find the strength to speak up and fight for themselves.
This is how Delilah reflects on it all, and it's just so powerful. She understood that getting her life back wasn't about revenge or being loud. It was about that quiet, steady strength you find when you know what you're worth, and you decide you're never going to let anyone take that away from you again.
Delilah's story is, of course, incredibly personal, but it really forces us to ask a much bigger question, doesn't it? In a society where our elders can so easily become invisible, what are our real responsibilities to make sure their dignity and their security aren't just something we assume, but something we actively fight to protect?